I have no words to say. The thumbnail is not a clickbait. No, I'm not going to say peak, I'm not going to say absolute cinema, simply because these words would be way too boring to describe what we have here. You know what, if they had just given us these two bosses and called it a day, I would still be fine with it, but fortunately this patch went above and beyond. It not only went so deep into Rover's past self and his struggles, but it captured one of the purest bond a person can have in their life and did a perfect job at it. But I want to start off by talking about the pacing of the quest. I don't know if people are going to see this as a bias or not, but will you believe me if I told you that every single section of the story felt so well paced? Nothing actually felt super rushed or super brief. Maybe if I'm really nitpicking, then the scenes before going to the Frostlands or inside the space station might feel dragged out, but trust me, having build up and context to what's coming is much more important than people think, even if it means slowing down the pacing a bit. Also, this was Court of Savanta we are talking about. This is the first time in 2 years we have come across an important facility related to them. I wish we had more screen time about them instead. Anyway, before I talk about Rover and whatever happened to Aemeath at the end, can we talk about these two? Like, I got goosebumps fighting them not because of their moveset, not because of their design, but the fact that these are humanoid bosses. Okay, don't get me wrong, fighting dragons, beasts, or a supercomputer is cool and all, but there is always something different about the air, the vibe, whenever the enemy is humanoid in design, or better, just straight up a human. Nameless Explorer, aka Professor Clement. The fact that you know there is a human in there, yes, he's dead now, corrupted by the void matter, but still, just makes the fight so much better. Not gonna lie, him sacrificing himself even though there was no one to save in the station was really sad. And if you see some of his dialogues, he says danger and leave this place, almost like there is still a human side inside him that's left, instinctively trying to save people, even after being corrupted by the void matter. When he started flying up to activate this move, I dropped my jaw a bit. Yeah, a bit, until my jaw dropped to the floor on this one. Eternal Shackle, huh? Kinda interesting. Huh? Wait, isn't the fight over? Huh? What? What the fuck? Wait, wait, wait. Wait, wait, wait. Third phase? It's a third fucking phase! So yeah, like we all agree this is the best fight in the game, right? Come on guys, come on. Forget this game, this is one of the best bosses I've ever faced. The only boss with 3 faces in the game is none other than the John Rover himself. Do you know what's really great about this scene? So we know Sigilum is basically a small part of Rover's frequency, but it's born from the hatred and fear Aemeath had about Rover's longing for their homeland. So when Sigilum showed slicing up this planet, it was implying the destruction of Solaris, because it wants to open the Strider Gate. But opening the Strider Gate would mean releasing LF1 as well, which would most likely destroy Solaris in the end. Also guys, just hear this 5-second section of the music. I love this fight, man. Okay, so let's talk about Rover and Aemeath now, shall we? Unconditional love. It is loving someone without any limitations and expectations of rewards from them. By default, it often comes from someone like a father or a mother to their child and vice versa. In the game, the first person to ever show that has been Shorekeeper. She will do whatever it takes or whatever costs to aid Rover to protect them without asking for anything in return. And now we have this girl Aemeath. Losing her parents to Voidstorm, she escaped to the Frostlands where she met the past Rover. Rover took her in and became her foster parent. But for Aemeath, Rover was more than just her parent. They were her friend, companion, family all at once because she is one of the few people that actually sees through the struggles and pain inside them. This line in particular was very strong.
I know you can't say this stuff to other people, cause they all think you're super strong.
This is not just about Rover in this sentence. Any person who bears a lot of responsibility on their shoulders will be able to relate here. Which is why this quest is so special, because Rover's longing for their homeland and the rejection from the other side might just be one of the core reasons to why they reset their memories in the first place. This hits harder when Aemeath says, "What about the cat?"
But what about the cat?
Aemeath saw past Rover's messages and some of their feelings inside the void space. She could understand the feeling of longing and how despite everything they still kept pushing through. When she wrote saving the world as what she wants to do in future, it was because Rover once said to Aemeath their mission is like saving the world. And when she said she just wants to have a happy and carefree life, it is because that's what Rover wanted for her. We also noticed how Aemeath has the same savior complex as Rover, like father, mother, like daughter, I guess. All these examples show the influence Rover has on Aemeath, how she looks up to them, how a lot of her personality and wishes are shaped from what Rover wants for her. As time went by, she kept forgetting her real parents and their memories, which is why Rover is the only parent figure she has now. Combine everything we discussed, and that's why she wants to go to any extent to protect Rover. This is like when you start feeling guilty as you see what your father and mother has been doing for you until you grow up. So now you want to repay them back in some way cause you understand their pain, right? At least that's how I grew up to be. So this might not apply to everyone else, but every time they showed an interaction between child Aemeath and past Rover, I couldn't help but be emotional. It was handled so well in my opinion. Also, what I'm about to say next might upset some people. We know a lot of people want playable characters to sometimes die, so the story could be more dark and mature, right? Even though I don't believe randomly killing of characters equate to a better story, but as long as the sacrifice is done well, everything should be fine. However, this is the first time in a gacha game that I did not want a character to die at the end. I am talking about Aemeath obviously. I know we are still probably going to save her in the upcoming patches, which is not going to be easy with the time paradox thing going around, but this is the first time that I actually felt a fear of losing a character in a gacha. So I'm not gonna lie, the fight with LF1 is very personal. Not just Rover, I went to save her as well. So moving on, we got a lot of huge low drops in the Skyak station, but I wanna point a finger at this girl Nivora. She was suspicious as hell since the start, but if you guys had noticed, she turned off the recording right at the moment Junshi was about to bring Professor Wei Ying, who helped in the Skyak development. She acted like it was a mistake, but the timing was way too convenient. Might be related to Fraxidus since we already got this guy who looks like someone with a doppelganger ability. That being said, I don't think this is Grand Architect at all, simply because I think that dude has more important things to do than cosplay as a shy cute student. Now to finish it off, the ending. It is totally normal to be confused about what happened at the end, more so if you are not familiar with the concept of time paradox. Okay, so before I proceed further, let me make one thing clear, okay? There are no multiple timelines in the current quest. Everything happened only in one timeline, which is we are at now. I'm gonna keep it super simple, so bear with me. In simpler terms, we group the time travel paradoxes into three common types: consistency paradox, bootstrap paradox, and predestination paradox. Don't worry, we are only going to look at what matters, so the bootstrap paradox. So to give an example, you receive an apple from a person A, then you go back in time, give the same apple to the person A in the past, who later gives it to you in the present. This completes a closed loop. The loop here isn't a repeating scene as you would think. Instead, it's a circle. Think of it as starting from point A to ending with point A, completing one circle or a loop. It started with you receiving the apple and ending with you receiving the apple, hence a closed loop. This is what happened with Aemeath. She is completing one singular loop to make sure Lahairoi of today is alive. Future Aemeath told this Aemeath she has to go to the past to seal the Trinodian. This is how you received the apple and went to the past to give the apple to person A. Then Aemeath does her job, and that's how Lahairoi is surviving in present time, completing the circle. Basically, whatever Aemeath is doing in the past is so that the present could exist. That is as simple as it goes. Now you might ask, how can the future exist before the past? How can a future Aemeath tell the Aemeath in this scene about the time travel? Well, we have been told about the void space, right? Understand this properly. In void space, past, present and future can all coexist at once. Time and space are distorted and any entity can exist in multiple places at once. The concept of time that we know is not the same inside void space. For now, just think like time does not exist in void space at all. That is why Aemeath got a message from her future self. Because, for example, in a void space, a message that you sent 10,000 years ago might reach to a college kid in 2026. All this is possible because LF1 is a higher dimensional Trinodian alien that is not even from Solar S3. Do keep in mind that if you cannot make sense of some timeline or events here, that means the void space is a reason for that, since time is not even a concept inside it and it does not care if something is in past, present or future. Aemeath can travel into this void space because she is already dead and a digital ghost who is tied to the Exostrider. And also she can just travel to the past anytime she wants. She was only able to do it once she got the core back to the Exostrider and when she had enough power to do so. Anyway, to prevent too much confusion, I am laying down a timeline for people to understand this in simple terms. Aemeath goes into the Frostlands and Past Rover saves her. After that, the Past Rover takes care of her, then they leave. Aemeath grows up and studies at Startorch. She died 10 years ago from the current timeline after overclocking and resonating with the Exo Strider. She finds out she can now enter the void space. She goes through Rover's frequency, the devoured Exo Strider inside. Sigillum is born from that tiny bit of Rover's frequency Aemeath got, and it's corrupted by the void matter. Sigillum keeps fighting Aemeath, trying to get her piloting control over Exo Strider so it can open the Strider Gate. Aemeath tells Sigillum her future self told her about the time travel, otherwise the Lahairoi of today would not exist, Rover would not exist, and anyone would not exist. Then we meet with her in 3.1. We send the core back to Exo Strider and Aemeath gets stronger in power. This gives her the sufficient power to time travel. She is about to enter the void space and Rover tries to stop her. Rover did not convince Aemeath, and at this moment they were sent back to the past when young Aemeath was drowning in the same lake. They tried saving her but was only able to push her upwards. Which then connects back to this point in the timeline when past Rover saves Aemeath and went on with their life. But here Rover had lost too much of their frequency at the end of 3.1, which then sends them back in the depth of void space, here at the start of 3.0. The Aemeath that saved Rover was the one that was going to void space to time travel back to the past, to help the Exo Strider and seal the Trinodium. At this moment, it seemed like Rover was also sent back to the past to witness Aemeath sacrificing herself live. Aemeath's last interaction with Rover was our first interaction with her. From here on out, it should be pretty clear. Aemeath time traveled and then she went back to the past to do all that, and which is why the Lahairoi of today is surviving. Also, the reason Amy says that she lost the talisman her mom gave her, it is because the current Rover has it. And the reason she appeared in the simulation cockpit at the end of 3.1 was related to this talisman. For now, we think of it as like an anchor to her existence, just like we did with Yuno. Either way, the story has been a great experience. I knew Lahairoi would not disappoint because it just had insane potential from the start, and the reason we came here in the first place is already resolved, which is finding how we were losing our frequency. But now we cannot leave this place because things have gotten really personal. Anyway, I can't wait for the Luke story quest because what is bro hiding? This is not just a doctor and we all know that. Also, comment down below if you cried at least once in the quest. I did tear up in this scene, the way she held a plushie from Rover and said, "What about the cat?" Yeah, such a great scene, man. Yeah, so see y'all later then, and try sharing and liking if you like. So, goodbye.